Scene 10. Use amazingly zippy words. Plug it in. We're done. Steve Jobs describing the sound transfer feature of the first iPod Fortune, November 2001. Steve Jobs introduced an upgrade to the iPhone at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference on June 9, 2008. The iPhone 3G was twice as fast as the original model, supporting the speedier third generation AT&T data network. A 3G network has a potential transfer speed of 3 megabytes per second versus 144 kilobytes per second on a slower 2G second generation network. Simply put, 3G is better for accessing the internet and downloading large multimedia files on a mobile phone. Jobs made it even simpler. It's amazingly zippy, he said. Jobs speaks in simple, clear, and direct language, free of the jargon and complexity so common in business communications. Jobs is one of the few business leaders who could confidently call a product amazingly zippy. In an interview for Fortune magazine, he was asked to describe the interface of Apple's new OS X operating system. "We made the button on the screen look so good you'll want to lick them," he said. Even if you think Jobs is grandstanding from time to time, his choice of words puts a smile on your face. He chooses words that are fun, tangible, and uncommon in most professional business presentations. Jobs, Gates, and the plain English test. Seattle Post Intelligencer tech reporter Todd Bishop wrote a clever piece at the urging of his readers. He ran the transcript from 4 presentations in 2007 and 2008, Steve Jobs' Macworld keynotes and Bill Gates' Consumer Electronics Show presentations, through a software tool that analyzes language. In general, the lower the numerical score, the more understandable the language. Bishop used an online software tool provided by usingenglish.com. The tool analyzes language based on 4 criteria. First, average number of words per sentence. Second, lexical density, how easy or difficult a text is to read. Text with lower density is more easily understood. In this case, a lower percentage is better. Third, hard words, average number of words in a sentence that contain more than 3 syllables. In this case, a higher percentage is worse because it implies that there are more hard words in the text that are generally less understood by the average reader. 4. Fog index, the number of years of education a reader theoretically would require to understand the text. For example, the New York Times has a fog rating of 11 or 12, while some academic documents have a fog rating of 18. The fog index simply means that short sentences written in plain English receive a better score than sentences written in complicated language. It should be no surprise that Jobs did noticeably better than Gates when their language was put to the test. In each case, Jobs performed significantly better than Gates when it comes to using terms and language people can easily understand. Jobs' words are simpler, his phrases are less abstract, and he uses fewer words per sentence. Excerpts from Bill Gates' remarks are in the right column. The left column contains excerpts from Steve Jobs' from table 10.2. Where Gates is obtuse, Jobs is clear. Where Gates is abstract, Jobs is tangible. Where Gates is complex, Jobs is simple. Now I can hear you saying, Bill Gates might not speak as simply as Jobs, but he's the richest guy in the world, so he must have done something right. You're correct, he did. Gates invented Windows, the operating system installed in 90% of the world's computers. You, however, did not. Your audience will not let you get away with language they'll accept from Gates. If your presentations are confusing, convoluted, and full of jargon, you will miss an opportunity to engage and excite your listeners. Strive for understanding, avoid lexical density. You might have noticed that many of Jobs' favorite words are the type of words most people use in everyday water cooler conversation. Amazing, incredible, gorgeous. Most presenters change the language for a pitch or presentation. Jobs speaks the same way on stage as he does off stage. He has confidence in his brand and has fun with the words he chooses. Some critics might say his language borders on hyperbole, but Jobs echoes the sentiments shared by millions of his customers. Of course, you should use words that authentically represent your service, brand, or product. A financial advisor recommending a mutual fund to a client would appear insincere and probably dishonest if he or she said, "This new mutual fund will revolutionize the financial industry as we know it. It's amazing and you need to invest your money in it right now." Instead, the financial advisor could say, "Mutual funds are amazing products that will help your money grow while lowering your risk. There are thousands of funds available, but I'm especially excited about a new one. Let me tell you more about it." In the latter statement, our financial advisor has chosen words that are simple and emotional while still maintaining his or her professionalism and integrity. Don't be afraid of using simple words and descriptive adjectives. If you genuinely find a product amazing, go ahead and say so. After all, if you're not excited about it, how do you expect the rest of us to be? Table 10.2. Verbiage in Gates's 2007 keynote versus Jobs' 2007 Macworld keynote. Steve Jobs. You know, it was just a year ago that I was up in here and announced that we were going to switch to Intel processors. It was a huge heart transplant to Intel microprocessors. And I said that we would do it over the coming 12 months. We did it in 7 months, and it's been the smoothest and most successful transition that we've ever seen in the history of our industry. Bill Gates. The processors are now opening the memory capability up to 64-bit, and that's a transition we're making without a lot of incompatibility, without paying a lot of extra money. Software, the old 32-bit software can run, but if you need to get more space, it's just there. Steve Jobs. Now I'd like to tell you a few things about iTunes that are pretty exciting. We're selling over 5 million songs a day now. Isn't that unbelievable? That's 58 songs every second of every minute of every hour of every day. Bill Gates. The process we've been through over this year, there was a beta 2, got out to over 2 million people. The release candidate, which was our last chance for feedback, got out to over 5 million. We had a lot of in-depth things where we went in and sat and interviewed people using Windows Vista in family situations. We did that in 7 different countries. We did incredible performance simulation, getting over 60 years equivalent of performance testing with all the common mix of applications that were out there. Steve Jobs. We've got awesome TV shows on iTunes. As a matter of fact, we have over 350 TV shows that you can buy episodes from on iTunes. And I'm very pleased to report that we have now sold 50 million TV shows on iTunes. Isn't that incredible? Bill Gates. Microsoft Office has got a new user interface. It's got new ways of connecting up to Office Live Services and SharePoint. But the discoverability of the richness is advanced dramatically by that user interface. Avoid jargon creep. Jargon rarely creeps into Jobs' language. His words are conversational and simple. Jargon language that is specific to a particular industry creates a roadblock to the free and easy exchange of ideas. I have attended countless meetings in which two people who work for different divisions of the same company cannot understand the jargon used by the other. Jargon and buzzwords are meaningless and empty and will most certainly make you less understandable and therefore less persuasive. Mission statements are the most culprits of jargon creep. Mission statements typically are long, convoluted, jargon-laden paragraphs created in multiple committee meetings and destined to be forgotten. They are replete with jargon and murky words you will rarely hear from Jobs, such as synergy, principle-centered, and best of breed. These expressions are nonsense, yet on any given day, employees in companies around the world are sitting in committee meeting to see just how many such words can be crammed into a single sentence. Apple's mission statement, on the other hand, is simple, clear, and impactful. It's full of emotive words and tangible examples. It reads, Apple ignited the personal computer revolution in the 1970s with the Apple II and reinvented the personal computer with the Macintosh. Today, Apple continues to lead the industry in innovation with its award-winning computers, OS X operating system, and iLife and professional applications. Apple is also spearheading the digital media revolution with its iPod portable music and video players and iTunes online store, and has entered the mobile phone market with its revolutionary iPhone. The words Jobs chooses to announce a new product have three characteristics. They are simple, concrete, and emotionally charged. Simple, free of jargon and with few syllables. Concrete, very specific phrases, short, tangible descriptions instead of long, abstract discussions. Emotional, descriptive adjectives. Examples of each of these three characteristics appear in Jobs' introduction of the MacBook Air. This is the MacBook Air. You can get a feel for how thin it is. Concrete. It has a full-size keyboard and display. Simple. Isn't it amazing? Emotional. This is what it looks like. Isn't it incredible? Emotional. It's the world's thinnest notebook. Simple. It has a gorgeous 13.3-inch widescreen display and a phenomenal full-size keyboard. Emotional and concrete. I'm stunned our engineering team could pull this off. Emotional. Table 10.3 lists even more examples of specific concrete and emotional phrases from Steve Jobs' repertoire of language. This is just a small sample. Every Jobs presentation contains similar language. Table 10.3. Specific, concrete, and emotional phrases in Jobs' presentations. Event. Apple Music Event, 2001. The coolest thing about iPod is your entire music library fits in your pocket. Introduction of the world's first 17-inch widescreen notebook, Macworld, 2003. I ask you to buckle up. Now I want you to put on your shoulder hardness. Referencing the current Titanium PowerBook, Macworld, 2003. The number one last object. Describing the new 17-inch PowerBook, Macworld, 2003. It's stunning. It's the most incredible product we have ever made. Look at that screen. It's amazing. Look at how thin it is. Isn't that incredible? When it's closed, it's only 1 inch thick. It's beautiful too. This is clearly the most advanced notebook computer ever made on the planet. Our competitors haven't even caught up with what we introduced 2 years ago. I don't know what they're going to do about this. Jobs' description of the original Macintosh: insanely great. Persuading PepsiCo President John Scully to become Apple CEO. Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want a chance to change the world? Quote in Triumph of the Nerds: "We're here to put a dent in the universe." Discussing CEO Jill Amelio's reign at Apple. The products suck. There is no sex in them anymore. Jobs creating a new word for the launch of a new iPod, September 2008. iPod Touch is the funnest iPod we've ever created. Unveiling the first 17-inch notebook computer, January 7, 2003. A giant leap beyond PC notebooks, miraculously engineered. Some people will look at the language in this table and say Jobs is a master of hype. Well, hype is hype only if there is no there. It would be hard to argue with Jobs that the Macintosh, the first easy-to-use computer was with a graphical interface and mouse, wasn't insanely great, or that products like a MacBook Air aren't stunningly thin. Jobs isn't a hype master as much as he is the master of the catchphrases. The folks at Apple think long and hard about the words used to describe a product. Language is intended to stir up excitement and create a must-have experience for Apple's customers. There is nothing wrong with that. Keep in mind that the majority of business language is gobbledygook, dull, abstract, and meaningless. Steve Jobs is anything but dull. Inject some zip into your words. A guru who keeps it simple. It was hard to miss financial guru Suze Orman in 2008 and 2009 when the global financial markets were collapsing. In addition to appearing on her own CNBC show, the best-selling author was a frequent guest on shows such as Oprah and Larry King Live. Banks and financial companies were also using her in advertisements meant to alleviate their customers' fears. I interviewed Orman several times and found her to be surprisingly candid about the secret to her success as a communicator. How do you make complicated financial topics easy to understand? I once asked. Too many people want to impress others with the information they have, so others think the speaker is intelligent, Orman responded. But Susa said, if your message is too simple, don't you risk not being taken seriously? I don't care what people think about it. All I care about is that the information I'm imparting empowers the listener or reader of my material. If your intention is to impart a message that will create change for the person listening, then if you ask me, it's respectful to that person to make the message as simple as possible. For example, if I gave you directions to how to get to my house, you would want me to give you the simplest directions to get there. If I made it more complicated, you would not be better off. You might get aggravated and give up. If it were simple, chances are you will get in your car and try to get to my house rather than giving up and saying it's not worth it. Others criticize simplicity because they need to feel that it's more complicated. If everything were so simple, they think their job could be eliminated. It's our fear of extinction, our fear of elimination, our fear of not being important that leads us to communicate things in a more complex way than we need to. Jargon, a sure way to upset Jack Welch. Jack Welch made the observation, insecure managers create complexity. During his 20 years as GE's top executive, the conglomerate grew from 13 billion in revenue to 500 billion. Welch was on a mission to declutter everything about the company, from its management processes to its communication. He despised long, convoluted memos, meetings, and presentations. In his book, Jack Straight from the Gut, Welch describes a meeting that left him underwhelmed. If you wanted to upset the new CEO, all you had to do was talk over his head. Welch would say, "Let's pretend we're in high school. Take me through the basics." He recounts his first meeting with one of his insurance leaders. Welch asked some simple questions about terms he was unfamiliar with. He writes, "So I interrupted him to ask, what's the difference between facultative and treaty insurance? After fumbling through a long answer for several minutes, an answer I wasn't getting, he finally blurted out in exasperation, 'How do you expect me to teach you in 5 minutes what it has taken me 25 years to learn?' Needless to say, he didn't last long. Speaking in jargon carries penalties in a society that values speech free from esoteric, incomprehensible bullshit. Speaking over people's heads may cost you a job or prevent you from advancing as far as your capabilities might take you otherwise." It's like this. Another way to add zip to your language is to create analogies, comparing an idea or a product to a concept or product familiar to your audience. When Steve Jobs shakes up a market category with the introduction of an entirely new product, he goes out of his way to compare the product to something that is widely understood, commonly used, and well known. Here are some examples. Apple TV is like a DVD player for the 21st century. Introduction of Apple TV, January 9, 2007. iPod Shuffle is smaller and lighter than a pack of gum. Introduction of iPod Shuffle, January 2005. iPod is the size of a deck of cards. Introduction of iPod, October 2001. When you find an analogy that works, stick with it. The more you repeat it, the more likely your customers are to remember it. If you do a Google search for articles about the products just mentioned, you will find thousands of links with the exact comparison that Jobs himself used. Following are the 3 analogies just reviewed in the format of a search phrase, in the number of links to articles using those phrases. Apple TV plus DVD player for 21st century, 40,000 links. iPod Shuffle plus pack of gums, 46,500 links. iPod plus deck of cards, 227,000 links. Your listeners and viewers are attempting to categorize a product. They need to place the concept in a mental bucket. Create the mental bucket from them. If you don't, you are making their brains work too hard. According to Emory University psychology professor Dr. Gregory Burns, the brain wants to consume the least amount of energy. That means it doesn't want to work too hard to figure out what people are trying to say. The efficiency principle has major ramifications, he states. It means the brain takes shortcuts whenever it can. Analogies are shortcuts. Nothing will destroy the power of your pitch more thoroughly than the use of buzzwords and complexity. You're not impressing anyone with your best of breed, leading edge, agile solutions. Instead, you are putting people to sleep, losing their business, and setting back your career. Clear, concise, and zippy language will help transform your prospects into customers and customers into evangelists. Delight your customers with the words you choose. Stroke their brains' dopamine receptors with the words that cause them to feel good whenever they think of you and your product. People cannot follow your vision or share your enthusiasm if they get lost in the fog. A cure for bad pitches. Don't sell solutions, create stories instead. The New York Times columnist David Pogue loves a good pitch. He says the majority of his columns come from pitches. What he doesn't want to hear is jargon. Surprisingly, PR professionals are among the worst offenders, surpassed only by bureaucrats, senior managers, and IBM consultants. Pogue argues that buzzwords, terminology such as integrated, best of breed, B2B, and consumer centric are unnecessary. The ideal pitch is a short paragraph telling Pogue exactly what the product is and does. For example, one company wrote Pogue and said it has a new laptop that could be dropped from 6 feet, could be dunked in water, and could survive 300-degree heat and still work. This clever description was enough to grab Pogue's attention. The Bad Pitch blog is a must-read for PR, marketing, and sales professionals. The site carries actual pitches from PR professionals who should know better than to issue impenetrable jargon masking is a press release. Here's an example. Hope you're well. I'd like to introduce you to blank, a new place-based out-of-home digital network that delivers relevant localized media within the rhythm of consumers' daily rituals, like afternoon coffee or sandwiches at lunch. This particular pitch came from a company that puts video billboards in delis. Why couldn't they just say it? It's too simple, that's why. People are afraid of simplicity. This is not an isolated example. The site is updated daily with pitches from large and small PR agencies that as well as small and large corporations. Apple pitches rarely make the site because the company's press releases tell a story in the same conversational language that Jobs uses in his presentations. As the site's mantra explains, a good pitch disappears and turns into the story. A bad pitch becomes the story. Follow the blog post at badpitch.blogpost.com. Word fun with titles. Your customers are your most potent evangelists. I recall a conversation with one of my clients, Cranium founder Richard Tate, who said he sold 1 million games with no advertising, all word of mouth. Never forget that your customers are your sales force, he told me. His customers, he calls them craniacs, want to have fun. Since fun was the name of the game, so to speak, Tate decided that every facet of the company should have some whimsy associated with it. He started with job titles. Cranium employees are allowed to make up their own titles. For example, Tate is not Cranium CEO. He is the Grand Poobah. No kidding, it's on his business card. You might think it's silly, but I'll tell you that when I first walked into the company's Seattle headquarters, I was hit with a wave of fun, enthusiasm, and engagement, the likes of which I had never seen before and I have never seen since. Director's notes. Unclutter your copy, eliminate redundant language, buzzwords, and jargon. Edit, and edit some more. Run your paragraphs through the Using English tool to see just how dense it is. Have fun with words. It's okay to express enthusiasm for your product through superlatives or descriptive adjectives. Jobs thought the buttons on the Macintosh screen looked so good that you would want to lick them. That's confidence.